Guys, I just want to say something here. This morning, I woke up to a report on the radio saying there was yet another school shooting. And it was in California this time, my state. Not only that, it was up in Santa Clarita. This is getting to a point where the rest of the world may have already reached a point where the rest of the world is pretty much going, what is wrong with you, America? And the sane ones of us here are going, we don't know. This seems to just happen. But what is happening is that people who are not being treated, people who should not be near guns, are being allowed near guns, are being allowed access to guns. Now, I'm not saying to take away everybody's guns. That's not going to happen, especially not in this country. This country, actually, sadly enough, was founded on a lot of violence and a lot of guns. You get the Wild West. Guns are just they're a part of America, but, way back then, you needed to, load one bullet into a musket shot, and it would take you time. Or you had, the revolver came about, or even, if you go to the Winchester Mystery House up north, the wife of Winchester kept building rooms onto it because she knew the demon that her husband had created, and she was afraid that, I think it was all of the people who were killed by the guns were going to come after her, so she needed places for them to go. So there are all these rooms and all these doors and all these stairs going places that lead nowhere. But it's a part of American culture, so people can keep it. That's fine. I grew up in an area where hunting is major. People have gun racks in the backs of their truck. It's normal. But there's just ways that this can be stopped. And yes, it is with regulation. And yes, it is with tighter control. And no, you can't 100% control everything. If you make a law against something, that's only going to make someone want to go after it all the harder, basically. But you still have to have tougher regulations. In order to get a driver's license, you have to pass multiple tests, and you have to pass, different vision tests and everything. And I think for a driver's license, you should actually pass a mental capacity test, so you won't be some crazy idiot on the road allowed to have a car. That should be part of it too, because it is a weapon that you're driving. A couple 1,000 pounds are going to slam into someone and cause a lot of damage. But to get a gun, you don't have to do that. They go through a background check. Yeah, but I could get one. I could go out and I could go through a very standard background check, and I could have a gun by the end of the week. I don't want one. I don't need one. I've shot them before. I don't like them. I am against them outside of hunting purposes to protect your livestock or your family. If you're not using a gun for those purposes, for food, for protection, you don't need to have one. And if you have one in your house, you keep them locked. My dad has guns. He's got a gun case in the house. It is always locked. The key was always hidden. We never knew where it was. My brother and I never knew where the key was. To this day, I don't know where it is. I'm an adult. He could tell me for safety purposes if I go home, hey, the key's blah, blah, blah. If, mountain lion comes down and starts attacking us, whatever, you can use the gun. But that's never happened, okay? That has never happened. And I grew up in an area where mountain lions are prevalent. They come into town, and my school mascot was the wildcat because of all of the mountain lions up there. So we had a good excuse to have guns, but we never used them. And then my dad also went hunting. But here, this kid I'm hearing was a 15-year-old kid that got a hold of this gun somehow and went on this rampage. And this happened again. This morning on the radio, I think it was NPR or something, I heard one of the reporters for the station, and this was live, talk to one of the mothers. And the mother was in tears. You could hear it in her voice, where she was saying that her 16-year-old daughter had contacted her, said that she was okay, but she and her friends were attempting to stop the bleeding from a classmate who had been shot twice. These are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. that are having to try to do field triage, basically, is what it is, to try to stop the bleeding from a classmate who'd been shot. This is something that's going to stick with them for the rest of their lives. This is something they are going to have to seek therapy for, or at least talk to a counselor about it. Children here in America nowadays, children are not just going through earthquake drills in California, which is what we're all used to. They're going through active shooter drills. They're looking at the next thing that they can find and wondering, can I use this as a weapon against an active shooter? A number 2 pencil. When I was a kid and when I was in high school, we had Y2K to worry about and possibly the next big one hitting. But that was it. And even I didn't buy into the Y2K hype because I'm like, people aren't going to be that dumb. No, people were that dumb. But this is just, it's wrong. And it's causing so much suffering for people that don't deserve it, especially for children. And the parents of these children, the families of these children, their friends. You know, it's not just the one person that's impacted. It is a ripple that affects everyone. And unless we get down to some kind of a business, we can't talk about this anymore. All we do is talk. Nothing's going to happen unless actual change takes place. But the problem with actual change is that actual change hurts. It can physically hurt. And the people who are shouting, they'll take our guns away, are the people that have no idea about how this is actually going to be handled. All they see is the fear-mongering from people who are trying to sell guns, or from gun owners, or from basically anyone who could make a profit off of the guns. They are not seeing the betterment of humanity or America, or to try to return us to some kind of a status where somebody doesn't look at America and be like, yeah, don't go there. School children get shot. That's not what you want. That's not what we want. That is not our America. That is definitely not my America. Schools should be safe. Churches should be safe zones. These are two things, two places that should always be considered a safe zone. This pisses me off. This pisses me off to no end that this is still going on. Back when the shootings happened in Columbine, I was about 17 or so. I was on a youth conference. I was at a youth conference in North Carolina. My church had sent me because I basically was the youth group. I was the only kid still left in the church. But during the youth conference, the pastor for the local church over in Columbine came over and he spoke to us about the necessity of loving each other. And he talked about the tragedy and how many people were killed. And he didn't mention the names of the shooters, which is good. Their names should never be mentioned. Their faces should never be shown. It should never be forgotten. But those people should never be remembered. But what he did was he brought in a torch. Now, this torch had the names of every person that was killed in the Columbine shooting engraved on the torch itself. The torch was covered. So what he did was he held it up, and all of us there at this youth conference, we all wordlessly got up and we reached out to touch this pastor and to touch the torch. And if we couldn't reach either, then we touched each other. We created this bond of solidarity and just of heartfelt warmth and caring, and just everything that we had just went into that. And that is a moment that I will never forget. I couldn't reach the torch itself, but I could reach a person in front of me who was touching the torch. There were that many of us clustered around. It was amazing. It was powerful. It was definitely moving. But because of that, it is an event that I will never forget. And after that, then they started talking to us at school about it. And I was still in high school at this point, and I thought, this is dumb. People aren't going to do this again. They're going to learn from this mistake. They're going to learn from what happened here, and they're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Well, look at the past couple of decades, ladies and gentlemen. It's happened numerous times. Children who have had bright futures are gone because of fear-mongering. That's what it comes down to. And I feel for everyone that this has affected, and this shouldn't be happening at all. Not in this country, not in any country, not anywhere, to children to children who still have a chance, who still have hope, who still have a bright future, who still need to decide who they are, and who still should not think about picking up a number 2 pencil and thinking if this can be used as a weapon. Wake up, America.